Welcome back to our channel. So fans, today is a beautiful, thrilling day to dive deep into the scandalous, backstabbing world of Genoa City. Grab your favorite drink, settle into your comfy spot, and let us unpack the latest explosive drama that is about to tear our favorite families apart. The tension is at an absolute boiling point, and the shadows are hiding terrifying secrets. The landscape of Genoa City has always been defined by its bitter, generational rivalries, but the current war being waged against Phyllis Summers is reaching a level of unprecedented cruelty. Daniel Romalotti Jr. is a man already carrying the crushing weight of the world on his shoulders. His father, the legendary Danny Romalotti, has inexplicably vanished without a trace, leaving a void of terrifying uncertainty. His mother, Phyllis, is currently standing on the precipice of federal prison, framed by the ruthless, AI-generated evidence meticulously crafted by Victor Newman. Daniel is exhausted. He is desperate. He is a son watching his family's legacy crumble into dust, walking the halls of power in a frantic search for a lifeline that simply does not exist. It was on one of these desperate, aimless walks through the corridors of the local government building that Daniel's world was entirely shattered. He approached a slightly ajar office door, intending to seek counsel, when a familiar, chilling sound stopped him dead in his tracks. He heard a voice. A deep, unmistakable, gravelly baritone that commands empires and destroys lives. Victor Newman, and then, responding to that dark baritone, was another voice. It was crisp, it was authoritative, it was laced with a venomous, self-righteous undertone that Daniel knew all too well. It was Christine Blair Romalotti, the district attorney, the beacon of justice. The woman who was supposed to be above the petty, vindictive wars of the Newman family. He stopped. He held his breath. He listened. The air grew ice cold. The words echoed in the empty hallway, striking him like physical blows. Victor and Christine were not discussing a standard legal procedure. They were actively, maliciously colluding. Daniel pressed himself against the wall, his heart hammering against his ribs as the horrifying details of their conversation became crystal clear. They were finalizing a new, devastating legal plan specifically designed to apply insurmountable pressure on Phyllis. It was a flawless, lethal snare. The trap was being set, and the bait was a ghost from the past. And this is the moment I almost screamed at the screen. How could Christine do this? We all know the bitter, violent, blood-soaked history between Christine and Phyllis. The decades of stolen loves, the shattered lives, the infamous hitandron that left physical and emotional scars that will never truly heal. But Christine has always paraded herself as the ultimate paragon of virtue. She is the untouchable, morally superior beacon of justice in a city of sinners. To see her actively conspiring in the shadows with Victor Newman, the very man who operates entirely outside the boundaries of the law to crush her oldest rival, is a staggering, nauseating display of hypocrisy. It is a betrayal of everything she claims to stand for. As Daniel continued to listen, the sheer, unadulterated audacity of the plot left him breathless. He heard the specifics of the charge they were planning to use. It was an old accusation. A buried, forgotten legal nightmare that Daniel firmly believed had been resolved, settled, and permanently erased from the legal ledgers years ago. Yet, Victor Newman, with his infinite resources and boundless malice, had somehow unearthed it. He had dusted off this dead charge and handed it to Christine as the ultimate weapon of mass destruction. It is a calculated, deeply cynical move to completely break Phyllis's spirit. If the fabricated AI evidence wasn't enough to force her to surrender the Summers conglomerate, this resurrected felony is intended to be the final, inescapable nail in her coffin. A profound, internal emotional earthquake violently shook Daniel to his core. He was paralyzed by the devastating revelation. This was not justice. This was not the law running its natural, unbiased course. This was a personal, venomous vendetta masquerading as legal procedure. He realized with sickening clarity that Christine was using her immense power, the full, crushing weight of the district attorney's office, to settle a personal score. The realization physically sickened him. The sacred lines between right and wrong, between justice and revenge, blurred into a toxic, unrecognizable gray. The system was rigged, and the executioner was someone he once trusted implicitly. Daniel could not stay silent. The betrayal burned too hot in his veins. Later that day, he burst into Christine's office, abandoning all pretense of professional courtesy. The tension in the room instantly became suffocating, thick enough to cut with a knife. He stood before her massive mahogany desk, his hands trembling with uncontainable rage. He looked into the eyes of the woman who represents the law. He didn't hesitate. He demanded answers. He called out her blatant hypocrisy. He asked her, his voice shaking with fury, how she could possibly sleep at night knowing she had allowed herself to become Victor Newman's willing puppet. She didn't blink, she didn't apologize, she just stared. Christine's defense was as cold and impenetrable as a fortress of ice. She looked Daniel dead in the eye and flatly denied the existence of any personal vendetta. She claimed, with a chillingly calm demeanor, that she was merely following the strict letter of the law. She insisted that Phyllis Summers had evaded true justice for far too long, slipping through the cracks of the system, and that Genoa City finally deserved a clean slate. She expertly wrapped her personal vengeance in the noble, unassailable flag of public service. But Daniel saw right through the polished facade. He saw the bitter, vindictive rival hiding safely behind the shiny DAS badge. An agonizing, deeply rooted dilemma began tearing Daniel apart from the inside out. He felt a profound conflict that transcended simple family loyalty. He was standing directly in the crossfire between his mother and his former lover. Yes, the complex, messy, heavily entangled romantic past between Daniel and Christine made this confrontation infinitely more painful and deeply personal. The lingering memories of their past intimacy clashed violently with the cold, ruthless reality of the present moment. How did the woman he once loved, the woman who once held his heart, become this merciless, calculating executioner? It was a betrayal on multiple, devastating levels, shattering his faith in the past and the present simultaneously. The strain on the mother-son dynamic was about to reach a critical breaking point. Daniel left Christine's office, his heart heavy with an impossible, suffocating burden. He knew he had to warn Phyllis. He had to look his mother in the eyes and tell her that the walls were closing in even faster than she realized. But doing so would only escalate the already catastrophic war. It would put an even greater, perhaps fatal, strain on his relationship with Phyllis, who was already operating on pure, unadulterated panic and paranoia. Daniel found himself cast in the role of the reluctant messenger of doom, forced to watch his mother unravel further into darkness. When Daniel finally breaks this devastating news, Phyllis's reaction will undoubtedly be explosive and tragic. The sheer, paralyzing terror of facing federal prison is already pushing her to the absolute brink of madness. She has been secretly meeting with Matt Clark, a known, dangerous monster, just to survive the current onslaught. Hearing that Christine is actively resurrecting old, dead charges to ensure her destruction will validate every single paranoid fear Phyllis has ever harbored. It will ignite a massive firestorm of desperate retaliation that could easily burn Genoa City to the ground, taking everyone down in the flames. This entire ordeal exposes the terrifying ethical collapse of the local justice system. Daniel is left questioning everything he ever thought he knew about morality and fairness. If the district attorney is willing to bend the rules, to resurrect legally resolved cases just to satisfy a decades-old, bitter personal grudge, then what hope is there for anyone else? Victor Newman's toxic, corrupting influence has officially infected the highest, most sacred levels of local government. Daniel realizes with a heavy heart that in this particular war, there are no good guys left to root for. There are only desperate survivors and tragic casualties. We must also acknowledge the sheer, terrifying brilliance and utter ruthlessness of Victor Newman's overarching strategy. He doesn't just defeat his enemies, he psychologically annihilates them. By weaponizing Christine's historical, deep-seated hatred for Phyllis, Victor manages to keep his own hands relatively clean while the district attorney does his dirty, vindictive work for him. It is an absolute masterclass in psychological warfare and manipulation. Victor knows exactly which emotional buttons to push, and he is playing Christine like a finely tuned instrument, turning the justice system into his own personal weapon of mass destruction. Daniel is now standing at the edge of a terrifying precipice, facing the ultimate, life-altering crossroads. He must make an impossible choice that will define his future. Does he fully align with his mother, diving headfirst into her dangerous, illegal alliances to fight back against this corrupt system? Does he continue to fiercely confront his ex-lover, hoping against hope to find a shred of the ethical, righteous woman she used to be? Or does he try to find an impossible middle ground, a desperate compromise that saves his mother without completely destroying his own soul in the process? The stakes have never been higher. What do you think Daniel's next move should be in this deadly game of chess?